the big picture first. Uh, is this itself is not the deal? It's an interim sort of arrangement. What is the potential of what's been put on the table?
Sure, no, and thanks for having me. So, as you rightfully point out, Vishnu, this is an interim deal, but I think it very much represents an important first step to a more comprehensive agreement. Given the very pronounced and serious trade frictions that had afflicted the bilateral for the last 6, 7, 8 months, this was a much needed, I think, first step in a situation in which the relationship was entering into an increasingly unsustainable phase. I think the potential here is quite large. Of course, this is about gradually reducing the tariff schedule down. This is about non-tariff barriers as well. And as the joint statement makes expressly clear, this is also about aligning the two countries more closely together on economic security. So from those different dimensions, I think the potential is quite profound. There's obviously a lot of work to be done, though, ahead. And the devil, of course, as we all know, are in the details.
Ronak, joint technology cooperation is inbuilt into the premise of this trade deal. So, accelerating India's digital and AI ecosystem, increasing trade in tech products like GPUs and data center equipment. Given the recent investments that we've seen, for example, Google, I believe Qualcomm will also be coming in with a very sizable investment. How do you see this joint technology cooperation premised on positioning India as an AI hub, as being central to a part of this deal going forward?
Yeah, I mean, part of what we're seeing here is there's an intent and now concrete measures being announced by both governments to keep other dimensions of the bilateral moving forward and to put it on an upward trajectory. Trade historically has been the underperformer of the US-India relationship. It reached its low point again with these tariffs. But I think what both countries are trying to signal is that other areas of cooperation that have traditionally characterized US-India ties, especially now in the AI sector, and this is, for example, an arena that is one that has been, I think, championed by previous US administrations, even before President Trump returned to office. And this is intended to be a very clear message and signal that this is going to ultimately be a very big area and arena of cooperation between the two countries. As much as this is an interim deal and that obviously the tariff reduction or future tariff reduction is garnering most of the headlines, what both countries and the negotiators have done, I think, smartly, is to say, look, other areas of cooperation are continuing forward. This is a relationship that is multidimensional. This is a relationship that spans various, realms of the two countries joining hands. And they very much see, for example, AI cooperation, data centers. These have gotten express mentions inside the joint statement as the future of US-India relations. And that this is an area that both countries and their respective leaders can cultivate, that they can nurture,
Sure.
and that they can see real progress going forward, especially as other parts of the deal and the details surrounding them continue to unfold.
Ronak, I was going through some of the fine print, and there are lots of aspects in this deal which are quite interesting. For example, aligning standards and accelerating exports. So, in specific terms, if there is a trade deal between two countries which didn't have a trade deal in this manner, it helps avoid repetitive testing and certifications for our exporters, which is absolutely huge because that's very expensive and time consuming across industries. It lowers costs and time for Indian goods to enter the US market. It supports Indian MSMEs integrate into global value chains. It helps Indian goods meet global standards, and therefore it brings down costs for consumers. So just in terms of integrating India's economy with America's in a bigger deal through this trade deal, it's a trade deal isn't just about I'm buying A and I'm exporting B. It's about systems, right? And I suppose that's also critical.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And look, this is less about one tariff number. And as you rightfully point out, Vishnu, this is about market access. This is about standards. This is about non-tariff barriers. They've expressly mentioned medical devices, ITC, licensing, testing standards, and it's explicitly linking trade to economic security alignment. right? Export
Yeah.
controls, supply chain resilience. Ultimately, what both countries are saying is that trade policy is part of broader national security. It's part of global security. These two countries need to go forward hand in hand, integrate with each other more comprehensively, harmonize their different standards, ensure that market access is based on equity, because ultimately there's a larger constellation of interests that both countries need to be pursuing, and those are ultimately in the national security domain, right? As these two countries, these two nations are looking at the global architecture of trade, especially with the unique vision that President Trump has brought to the White House upon his return to the presidency, it's meant to be a very powerful signaling mechanism to the rest of the world that after decades of friction, after decades of trade irritants that have really afflicted the two countries, that the United States and India are now resetting relations in this very important arena. They're now willing to move forward, and they're essentially putting the world on notice that there's going to be potentially a new era being undertaken by the United States and India that see as a congruence of values, but also a congruence of interests, especially now in the economic domain.